The massive alien fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic insects, their ships gleaming under the distant sun's light. Commander Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the blue planet below. "Another primitive world," he said, his voice filled with the boredom of someone who had conquered dozens of planets before. "Run the standard scans." The ship's AI responded immediately, projecting detailed analyses of Earth's defense systems onto the curved screens surrounding the bridge. Military bases, missile silos, and aircraft carriers appeared as glowing dots across the planet's surface. Their most advanced aircraft can barely reach their own upper atmosphere, reported Lieutenant First Class Baker, the human expert on Rex's staff. The lieutenant had studied hundreds of civilizations, and his reports were always accurate. Their weapons are primarily chemical-based projectiles and crude nuclear devices. Rex made a sound that might have been a laugh. Typical of developing worlds. They always think their nuclear weapons make them invincible. He moved closer to the main viewport, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. "What about their atmospheric composition?" "Standard nitrogen-oxygen mix, Commander. Nothing our ships haven't handled 1,000 times before." Baker tapped through several screens of data. "Though there are some unusual electromagnetic patterns we haven't fully mapped yet." "Irrelevant." Rex dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper right hand. "Prepare the first wave of atmospheric fighters. Let's follow standard invasion protocol." Down on Earth, things were far from quiet. In the Pentagon's underground command center, General Thompson stared at satellite feeds showing the alien fleet. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the room's cool temperature. Dozens of military personnel worked at their stations, their faces lit by the blue glow of computer screens. "How many ships?" Thompson asked, his voice steady despite the situation. "We're counting at least 300 large vessels, sir," replied Captain Reed from the radar station. "And they're launching smaller craft. Hundreds of them." Thompson grabbed his secure phone. "Get me the president. And someone find Dr. Anderson. We need our best atmospheric scientist on this." Across the world, similar scenes played out in military commands and government offices. The Chinese launched their newest stealth fighters. The Russians moved their nuclear submarines into position. The European Union activated their joint defense protocols. But in a small research station in Colorado, Dr. Anderson was focused on something else entirely. Her instruments had been going crazy since the alien fleet arrived, showing bizarre readings in the upper atmosphere. "This can't be right," she muttered, pushing her glasses up her nose as she studied the data. The patterns in Earth's electromagnetic field were shifting, responding to the presence of the alien ships in ways she'd never seen before. It was as if the atmosphere itself was reacting to the invasion. Back in orbit, Commander Rex gave the order to begin the assault. "Send in the first wave. Target their major military installations. Show them the futility of resistance." The alien fighters descended toward Earth, their quantum drives humming with power. But as they hit the upper atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Warning lights flashed across their control panels. Their supposedly perfect navigation systems began showing errors. "Minor atmospheric turbulence," the flight leader reported. "Compensating." But it wasn't minor. As the fighters descended further, their problems multiplied. Static filled their communication channels. Their quantum sensors began giving contradictory readings. Several fighters had to pull up, their systems nearly overloaded by something in Earth's atmosphere that their scans hadn't detected. Rex watched from his command ship, his confidence wavering for the first time as reports of malfunctions flooded in. "What's happening down there?" "Sir," Baker's voice held a note of concern. "There's something about Earth's atmosphere we didn't account for. The electromagnetic patterns we detected, they're interfering with our quantum systems somehow." Rex's four eyes narrowed as he watched more fighters struggle to maintain formation. "Impossible. We've conquered worlds far more advanced than this one. Their primitive atmosphere cannot be causing these problems." But as alerts continued to sound across his bridge, a new thought occurred to him. Perhaps they had made a terrible mistake in dismissing Earth as just another primitive world. Perhaps there was more to this planet's defenses than met the eye. And down in her Colorado lab, Dr. Anderson was beginning to understand exactly what that something was. Commander Rex paced on his bridge, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in frustration. The first wave of his attack had failed, something that had never happened before in his entire career. But he wasn't ready to give up. "Launch the heavy fighters," he ordered. "Add shield modifications. Double the power to all systems." Lieutenant Baker looked worried. "Sir, if we increase power that much, it might make the atmospheric interference worse." "Do it." Rex slammed his fist on the command console. "I will not be defeated by simple air." Down on Earth, General Thompson was organizing humanity's response. In the command center, screens showed alien ships struggling against Earth's atmosphere. Some were spinning out of control, while others retreated back to space. "Get our pilots in the air," Thompson ordered. "They're vulnerable now. Let's show them what Earth's defenders can do." Captain Mike Ryan climbed into his F-35 fighter jet. He had been flying for 15 years, and he knew Earth's atmosphere like an old friend. As he took off from the military base, he saw other pilots joining him in the sky. American, Chinese, Russian, and European fighters all rose together to defend their planet. "This is Eagle One," Ryan reported through his radio. "We're approaching the alien ships. They're having trouble staying steady in the jet stream." Dr. Anderson's voice came through their radios. She was helping coordinate the defense from her lab. "The jet stream is moving at 250 miles per hour today. Our planes are built for it. Their ships aren't. Use that advantage." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Earth's history. The alien ships were bigger and more advanced, but they moved like drunk drivers in Earth's winds. Human pilots, who had trained in these conditions all their lives, flew circles around them. Ryan led his squadron through a thick cloud bank. The aliens tried to follow, but their sensors couldn't handle the moisture and electrical charges in the clouds. 3 alien ships crashed into each other, confused by the natural radar interference that human pilots knew to expect. "Their technology is too complex," Dr. Anderson explained excitedly over the radio. "Our atmosphere isn't just gases. It's a constantly changing mix of pressures, temperatures, and electrical fields. Their computers can't process it fast enough." In space, Commander Rex watched in horror as more of his ships failed. "Impossible," he shouted. "These humans are nothing. Their technology is primitive." "Sir," Baker tried again, "I don't think it's about their technology. They've adapted to their environment instead of trying to overcome it. Our ships are too advanced. They're trying to fight the atmosphere instead of working with it." On the ground, people gathered in cities around the world, watching the battle in the skies above. They cheered as human fighters, using their knowledge of wind patterns and weather conditions, outmaneuvered the struggling alien ships. Dr. Anderson made another discovery in her lab. "General Thompson," she called excitedly. "The alien shield technology. It's making things worse for them. Their energy shields are reacting with the natural electricity in our atmosphere. Every lightning storm will be drawn to them like a magnet." As if nature heard her words, storm clouds began gathering around the alien fleet. The same storms that human pilots knew to avoid became weapons against the invaders. Lightning bolts, drawn to the aliens' energy shields, struck ship after ship. "Pull back," Rex finally ordered, watching his mighty fleet fall apart. "Retreat to orbit. We need to rethink our entire approach." As the alien ships fled back to space, cheers erupted in the command center. But General Thompson stayed serious. "They'll be back," he said. "They'll try to find a way around our atmospheric defense." "Let them try," Dr. Anderson replied confidently. "The more power they use, the more their advanced technology will work against them. Earth's atmosphere took millions of years to become what it is. You can't just force your way through it with brute force and fancy technology." Captain Ryan landed his fighter, climbing out with a big smile. "Never thought I'd say this," he said to his fellow pilots, "but thank goodness for bad weather." As the sun set on Earth that day, humans everywhere looked up at the sky with new appreciation. Their atmosphere, which they had taken for granted for so long, had proved to be their strongest shield against alien invasion. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, and next time, they would be better prepared. Dr. Anderson hadn't slept in 2 days. Her lab in Colorado was covered with papers, computer screens, and empty coffee cups. But she didn't care about the mess. She was too excited about what she had just discovered. "General Thompson," she practically shouted into her phone, "I need you to come to the lab right now. Bring your best military scientists. I figured out exactly why our atmosphere affects their ships." In orbit, Commander Rex was having his own meeting. His fleet had retreated to space, and now his best engineers were trying to understand their failure. "Look at these readings," Lieutenant Baker pointed at a screen. "Every time our ships enter their atmosphere, our quantum systems go crazy. It's like trying to run a computer underwater. Nothing works right." Rex growled in frustration. "There must be a way around it. We've conquered worlds with poison atmospheres, with acid rain, with storms that could tear ships apart. How can simple Earth air defeat us?" Back in Dr. Anderson's lab, General Thompson arrived with a team of scientists. They gathered around her main computer screen as she explained her discovery. "It's not just one thing," she said, pulling up different charts. "It's everything working together. Earth's atmosphere is like a perfect storm for their technology." She pointed to the first chart. "See this? Our atmosphere has layers. Each layer has different pressure, different temperature, different electrical charges. Their ship's computers try to adjust to each layer separately. But the layers aren't separate. They work together." One military scientist stepped forward, like a combination lock. "Exactly." Dr. Anderson smiled. "But it's even better. Our atmosphere changes constantly. Wind patterns shift, temperatures rise and fall. Electrical charges move around. Their quantum computers can't predict it because there's no pattern to predict." General Thompson rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "So their advanced technology is actually their weakness." "Yes. Their ships try to force their way through our atmosphere using fancy shields and quantum fields. But that's like trying to swim by fighting against every wave. Our aircraft work with the atmosphere instead of against it." Meanwhile, in space, Lieutenant Baker was reaching similar conclusions. He nervously approached Commander Rex with his findings. "Sir," he said, "I think I understand why we failed. Look at human aircraft. They're simple, basic, but they're perfectly adapted to their atmosphere. Their wings use air pressure to fly. Their materials flex and bend with temperature changes. They don't fight their atmosphere. They dance with it." Rex stared at Earth through the view screen. The blue planet that had seemed so primitive now looked like a fortress. Its swirling atmosphere was no longer just air. It was a complex defense system created by nature itself. In the lab, Dr. Anderson made another breakthrough. She jumped up from her computer, startling everyone. "The electromagnetic fields," she exclaimed. "Earth's magnetic field isn't just one big magnet. It's millions of tiny electrical currents, all moving in different directions. When the aliens' quantum systems hit these fields, it's like throwing 1,000 different radio signals at their computers all at once," finished one scientist. "And that's not all," Dr. Anderson continued. "Our atmosphere contains water vapor, dust particles, different gases, all moving and mixing together. Their sensors can't handle so many variables. It's overloading their systems." General Thompson smiled for the first time in days. "So we don't just have a defense. We have the perfect defense against their type of technology. Nature gave us a shield they can't break." Dr. Anderson agreed. "And the more they try to power through it, the worse it gets for them." Up in space, Commander Rex finally made a decision. "Prepare the main fleet," he ordered. "If we can't fight through their atmosphere, we'll find a way to change it. But Lieutenant Baker looked worried. "Sir, if we try to change their atmosphere, we might make it even more unpredictable. We don't understand how all its parts work together." Rex ignored the warning. He wouldn't accept defeat. As his fleet prepared for their next attack, he didn't realize that he was about to make things much worse for his forces. Earth's greatest defense wasn't its weapons or its armies. It was the very air that had protected life on Earth for millions of years. And it wasn't done surprising the aliens yet. General Thompson stood in front of a room full of the world's best pilots and scientists. On the big screen behind him, satellite images showed the alien fleet regrouping in space. They were clearly preparing for another attack. "Thanks to Dr. Anderson's discovery," Thompson said, pointing to a map of Earth's atmosphere, "we now know our air is our best weapon. It's time we learned how to use it." Captain Ryan, who had led the successful fighter attacks in the last battle, raised his hand. "How do we do that, sir? We can't control the weather." Dr. Anderson stepped forward with a smile. "No, but we can predict it. And more importantly, we can use it." She pulled up a new image on the screen. "Look at these wind patterns. The jet stream is like a river of air moving at incredible speeds. We know how to ride it. They don't." In space, Commander Rex was working on his own plan. "If their atmosphere destroys our technology," he told his officers, "then we'll destroy their atmosphere first. Prepare the climate disruptors." Lieutenant Baker tried one last time to warn his commander. "Sir, interfering with a planet's atmosphere is dangerous. We've never tried it on a world as complex as Earth." "Silence," Rex shouted. "I will not be defeated by simple wind and clouds." Back on Earth, Dr. Anderson was teaching the pilots new tactics. "Their ships use quantum fields to fly," she explained. "These fields get confused by our atmosphere's electrical charges. If you fly through storm clouds, the electrical activity will make their targeting systems useless." "Like flying through nature's chaff," Ryan said, referring to the metal strips pilots used to confuse radar. "Exactly." Dr. Anderson pointed to another map. "And look at these high-pressure zones. The dense air creates turbulence their ships can't handle. Their computers try to compensate, but that just makes things worse." Thompson nodded. "It's like they're bringing a supercomputer to a sword fight. Sometimes simpler is better." Teams of engineers began modifying Earth's fighters. They didn't add fancy new technology. Instead, they made the planes tougher, more flexible, better able to handle extreme weather. They were preparing for the biggest air battle in human history. Up in space, Rex's fleet launched their climate disruptors, huge machines designed to change a planet's atmosphere. As they entered orbit, they began firing energy beams into Earth's air. "Sir," Baker called out in alarm, "the atmosphere. It's reacting in ways we didn't expect." Rex rushed to the view screen. The energy beams were supposed to calm Earth's atmospheric patterns. Instead, they were making them more violent. Huge storms began forming. The jet stream grew stronger. Electrical activity in the clouds increased 100-fold. On Earth, Dr. Anderson watched these changes with excitement. "They're doing exactly what we hoped," she told General Thompson. "Their attempt to control our atmosphere is backfiring. They're making our weapons stronger." Thompson immediately sent orders to all airbases. "All pilots, prepare for takeoff. Operation Thunderstrike is go." Hundreds of fighters took off from bases around the world. But this time, they didn't try to attack the alien ships directly. Instead, they used their knowledge of Earth's weather to lead the aliens into traps. Ryan led his squadron into a massive storm cloud. The alien ships followed, their sensors blinded by lightning and rain. Inside the storm, the human pilots relied on their training and instincts, while the alien ship's computers crashed from electrical overload. "This is amazing," Ryan called over his radio as he watched 3 alien ships spin out of control. "The worse the weather gets, the better advantage we have." Rex watched in horror as his climate disruptors made Earth's atmosphere even more deadly to his fleet. Storms he had never seen before on any world raged across the planet. The jet stream became so powerful it was tearing his ships apart. "Shut it down," he finally ordered. "Turn off the climate disruptors." But Baker shook his head. "We can't, sir. The atmospheric chain reaction. It's out of control. We didn't just wake up their weather. We made it angry." As lightning flashed and thunder rolled across the sky, Earth's defenders prepared for the fight of their lives. They had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Now it was time to show the aliens why you should never underestimate a species that learned to thrive in one of the most complex atmospheres in the galaxy. The sky turned black with storms. The aliens' climate disruptors had awakened something ancient and powerful in Earth's atmosphere. Lightning flashed constantly, and winds howled at speeds never recorded before. It was as if the planet itself had decided to join the fight. In the command center, Dr. Anderson watched the weather radar with wide eyes. "The atmospheric pressure is off the charts," she reported. "The aliens created a superstorm system that covers half the planet." General Thompson stood beside her, watching the chaos unfold. "Can our pilots handle these conditions?" "They're the only ones who can," she replied. "This is exactly what we trained for." Captain Ryan sat in his fighter jet, waiting for takeoff. Around him, hundreds of pilots from every nation prepared to launch. They had practiced flying in extreme weather for weeks. Now it was time to put that training to use. "All pilots," Thompson's voice came through their radios. "The storm is our ally. Use it. The worse the weather gets, the more trouble their ships will have. Good hunting." The fighters took off into the storm. Rain hammered their cockpits. Lightning flashed around them. But human pilots had flown in storms before. They knew how to read the wind, how to use the air currents to their advantage. Up in space, Commander Rex watched the storm grow. His climate disruptors were still pumping energy into Earth's atmosphere, and he couldn't shut them down. The machines had overloaded, stuck at full power. "Sir," Lieutenant Baker reported, "our main fleet is losing power. The electromagnetic disturbance from the storm is affecting our ships even in orbit." Rex slammed his fist on his chair. "Send everything we have. All ships, attack. We'll overwhelm them with numbers." The alien fleet descended into Earth's atmosphere. Thousands of ships, from huge carriers to small fighters, pushed through the storm clouds. But as soon as they entered the superstorm, everything went wrong. The jet stream, now moving at nearly 400 miles per hour, caught the alien ships like toys. Their computers couldn't adjust fast enough to the violent air currents. Ships crashed into each other, their advanced sensors blinded by the constant lightning. Ryan led his squadron through the chaos. "Look for the disturbance patterns," he called to his pilots, "just like we practiced. The lightning shows us where their shields are weakest." Human fighters dove through the storm, firing missiles at the struggling alien ships. They had learned that the aliens' energy shields attracted lightning. Each time lightning struck an alien ship, its shields weakened for a few seconds. That was when the human pilots attacked. In her lab, Dr. Anderson made another discovery. "General, the storm is creating a new kind of electrical field. Their quantum drives can't handle it. Their ships are losing power." She was right. All across the sky, alien ships began falling from the clouds. Their advanced technology, which had conquered so many worlds, was being defeated by Earth's supercharged atmosphere. Rex watched in horror as his mighty fleet fell apart. "This is impossible. We are the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by weather." "Sir," Baker said quietly, "I don't think technology is always the answer. These humans, they learn to live with their world instead of trying to control it. Maybe that's why they're winning." The battle raged for hours. The storm grew stronger and stronger, but the human pilots kept fighting. They had trained all their lives to fly in Earth's challenging atmosphere. Now that training was saving their world. Finally, after losing hundreds of ships, Rex gave the order he never thought he would give. All ships, full retreat. Get out of their atmosphere. Get out now. The alien fleet turned and fled back to space, leaving their broken climate disruptors behind. As they retreated, the superstorm began to calm. The winds slowed, the lightning faded, and the clouds started to break up. On the ground, people emerged from their shelters to see the results. The sky was filled with falling debris from destroyed alien ships, but Earth's fighters still flew proudly through the clouds, defending their home to the end. General Thompson looked at Dr. Anderson and smiled. "We didn't just win a battle today. We proved something important." She nodded. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the most advanced technology. Sometimes it's understanding and working with nature instead of fighting against it. In space, Rex stared at the blue planet that had defeated his unstoppable fleet. For the first time in his life, he wondered if perhaps his people had been wrong about what made a civilization advanced. 3 days after the Great Battle, Earth's skies finally cleared. The remains of alien ships were scattered across every continent, and teams of scientists rushed to study the advanced technology. But everyone knew the war wasn't over yet. In orbit, Commander Rex faced the hardest moment of his career. His mighty fleet, which had conquered 20 worlds, was reduced to less than half its original size. Hundreds of his best ships lay broken on Earth's surface. "Sir," Lieutenant Baker approached carefully, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They want to talk." Rex stared at the blue planet below. For the first time, he didn't see a primitive world to conquer. He saw a fortress that had defeated his best technology. "Put them through," he ordered quietly. On Earth, in the United Nations building in New York, General Thompson and Dr. Anderson prepared to speak with the aliens. Screens around the room showed military leaders and politicians from every nation. This would be humanity's first official contact with the alien civilization. "Remember," Dr. Anderson said to the assembled leaders, "we're not just negotiating from a position of strength. We're offering them knowledge they desperately need." The huge screen at the front of the room lit up, showing Commander Rex's face. His 4 eyes blinked as he looked at the gathered humans. "You have defeated our fleet," Rex said, his voice translated by computers. "No one has ever done that before. We are interested in understanding how." General Thompson stepped forward. "Commander Rex, we propose a deal. Your remaining ships are still trapped in orbit. Your climate disruptors prove that trying to fight our atmosphere only makes it more dangerous. But we're willing to share our knowledge." In space, Rex listened carefully. Lieutenant Baker stood beside him, taking notes. They had lost too many ships to risk another attack, but the idea of learning from primitives bothered Rex's pride. "What exactly are you offering?" Rex asked. Dr. Anderson moved to stand beside Thompson. "Your technology is incredibly advanced," she said, "but it's built to overcome nature, to force your way through any obstacle. We learned a different way. We adapted to our environment. We learned to work with nature instead of against it." She pulled up diagrams showing how Earth's planes used air currents, how they flexed and moved with the winds instead of fighting them. "We can teach you how to modify your ships to work with atmospheric conditions instead of fighting them. This knowledge would help you on every planet you visit." Rex's 4 eyes widened as he understood. Earth wasn't just offering peace. They were offering something the Stellar Dominion had never considered before. A completely new way of approaching space travel and planetary exploration. "And what do you want in return?" he asked. "3 things," Thompson said firmly. "First, Earth remains free. No more invasion attempts. Second, you share your space travel technology with us. We've proven we can handle it responsibly. Third, we work together to remove your broken climate disruptors before they cause more damage to our atmosphere." Baker whispered to Rex, "Sir, their terms are surprisingly reasonable, and their atmospheric adaptation techniques could revolutionize our entire fleet." Rex thought about all the worlds his people had struggled to conquer, all the ships they had lost to hostile atmospheres over the years. Perhaps it was time for the Stellar Dominion to learn a new way. "We accept," Rex said finally. "But I have one condition. I want our scientists to work directly with Dr. Anderson. We need to understand how you learned to do this." Dr. Anderson smiled. "Actually, Commander, we learned it from every bird that flies, every leaf that floats on the wind, and every raindrop that falls. Nature has been teaching us since the first humans looked up at the sky. In the days that followed, ships from the stellar dominion landed peacefully on Earth for the first time. Human pilots began teaching alien pilots how to read weather patterns. Earth scientists started working with alien engineers to redesign their ships. The invasion that was supposed to conquer Earth had instead opened up a whole new chapter in galactic history. Sometimes, Rex realized, the most primitive solution was actually the most advanced, and humanity's greatest weakness had turned out to be their greatest strength. 1 year after the Great Battle, Earth had changed in ways nobody could have imagined. Alien ships now peacefully shared the skies with human aircraft. The destroyed climate disruptors had been cleaned up, and Earth's atmosphere had returned to normal. But the biggest changes were in how both species had learned from each other. Dr. Anderson stood in her new laboratory, which was 10 times bigger than her old one. Teams of human and alien scientists worked together, studying holographic displays of different planetary atmospheres. The room buzzed with excitement as they made new discoveries every day. "Look at this," she said to Commander Rex, who now visited Earth regularly. She pointed to a simulation of a storm on a distant planet. "By applying what we learned from Earth's atmosphere, we figured out how to fly safely through any gas giant in the galaxy." Rex watched the simulation with all 4 eyes. His ships now used a combination of alien technology and human atmospheric knowledge. They could land on planets that had been impossible to reach before. "We were wrong about Earth," he admitted. "We thought being advanced meant having the most powerful technology. But you showed us that true advancement means understanding nature's power and working with it." In space, Lieutenant Baker, now promoted to captain, was teaching a class of mixed human and alien pilots. They flew special training ships that combined the best of both worlds, alien quantum drives with Earth-inspired atmospheric adaptations. "Remember," Baker told his students, "every atmosphere is unique. Don't try to force your way through it. Listen to what it's telling you. Feel how it moves. That's what humans taught us." Captain Ryan, who had led the defense during the battle, now worked with alien engineers to design new ships. They took the flexible, adaptable nature of Earth's aircraft and added alien technology to create something entirely new. "The key is to stay humble," Ryan explained to a group of alien designers. "No matter how advanced you are, nature is always more complex. Work with it, not against it." On Earth's surface, cities had changed too. Alien technology helped humans clean up pollution and better understand their atmosphere. Weather prediction became perfect, and storms that once caused destruction were now used to generate clean energy. General Thompson, now the head of Earth's new Space Defense Force, met with the alien leadership in the United Nations building. They were discussing plans to share Earth's atmospheric adaptation techniques with other civilizations. Today, Thompson announced to the gathered leaders, "We're sending the first joint human-alien mission to help other worlds. There are planets out there where people struggle against hostile atmospheres. We can help them." In orbit, the first of these joint mission ships prepared to leave. It carried Dr. Anderson, Commander Rex, and a crew of both humans and aliens. Their goal was to visit worlds where previous attempts at landing had failed. "It's amazing," Dr. Anderson said, looking back at Earth through the ship's window. "A year ago, we were fighting each other. Now we're teaching the galaxy a better way to explore space." Rex nodded. "Your atmosphere didn't just defeat us," he said. "It taught us. Every world we visit now, we look for what it can teach us instead of trying to conquer it." Back on Earth, in schools across the planet, children learned new lessons about their world. They learned that Earth's atmosphere wasn't just air. It was a complex shield that had protected life for millions of years. They learned that sometimes the best defense isn't a weapon, but understanding and working with nature. Lieutenant Baker, working with Dr. Anderson's team, made one final discovery that changed everything. He found that the same principles that made Earth's atmosphere so effective could be used to create new forms of space travel. Earth's gift to the galaxy, he told his fellow scientists, isn't just about atmospheric knowledge. It's about a whole new way of thinking. Instead of fighting against the universe, we learn from it. Instead of conquering nature, we become part of it. As the joint mission ship disappeared into deep space, humanity had found its place in the galaxy. They weren't the most technologically advanced species, but they understood something more important. They understood that true power comes not from fighting against nature, but from learning to dance with it. Earth's atmosphere, which had seemed like a simple thing to the aliens at first, had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from working with the very things others see as weaknesses.